You're listening to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast with Randy Rubenstein, episode 95. My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast, where we believe when your thoughts grow, the conversations in your home flow. I'm super excited to dive into today's topic, but before we do, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by the Mastermind Parenting Membership, our exclusive private year-long mastermind. In the mastermind, you're going to find a tribe of smart, determined, and sometimes even slightly rebellious parents who all happen to have something in common. We all have at least one strong-willed kid. We're a group of trailblazers. We believe that everything's figure-outable. We learn how to laugh more and yell way less. We solve problems. We have productive combos instead of lectures that always fall on deaf ears anyway, as you guys know. We're a group of action takers. We don't allow ourselves to stay stuck living in a home that feels like we're walking on eggshells. Life's too short for that. We dig in, we take action, and we figure out what's coming up for us when our kids are pushing our buttons. We also learn to see our kids differently and how to speak to them in a way that they can actually hear without the constant fighting and dictator type behavior. We change patterns that have possibly been in our families for generations. We become the happy, problem-solving parents and people we hope our kids will grow up to be, because you can't teach what you don't have. You got to do it first, guys. The doors are officially open and we're enrolling for the Mastermind Parenting Membership February cohort group. So if you're ready to get the coaching, support, training, resources, and accountability you deserve to finally take your family from surviving to thriving, I want you to join the mastermind. Go to mastermindparenting.com/February and apply for the mastermind. There's an option to book a free call with Lindsay, Lindsey, on my team if you want all the deets to determine whether the mastermind would be a good fit for you. It's mastermindparenting.com/February. Giant things are happening in the mastermind. So if you've been a podcast listener for a while and you are ready to have some accountability and experience a community like you have never, ever been involved in, then come apply for the mastermind. Well, guys, it's almost 2020. We are wrapping it up. So I am naming this episode, Is 2020 Your Year to Thrive? So the word that seems to be the word for 2020 in our mastermind is thrive. I have a bunch of different programs planned, and basically I have spent the last year like really digging in and studying what creates behavior change. Like, why is it so hard for people to change their behavior? So I have done a ton of things kind of behind the scenes in my mastermind, and I haven't run a lot of new groups, and I've kept my group small, and I've been piloting things, and I've been reading like ridiculous amounts of books and doing trainings and working with PhDs in course design and doing all kinds of things, because the truth is I was just thinking, what do I have to do to help people actually step into action, to move from passive consumption, which is you guys like listening to a podcast. You know, I run into people and they're like, oh, I listened to your podcast. I love your podcast. And then very quickly, most often they'll say, so what do I do when? And when I start getting those questions, I know that this is a person that and I've been there too before, you guys, like I get it, who is sitting in passive consumption. Like, you're listening to things and they're entertaining and they make sense and they're helping you to think differently. But when you're in those real life moments, you can't recall the things you actually learned from listening to the podcast. You just go back to the way you've been doing things, and it almost leaves you like worse off, because when you're in your conscious brain, your thinking brain moments, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And then you find yourself in the real life moments and you don't do it. You do you yell, you blame, you shame, you do whatever it is that you swore you weren't going to do. So then you feel super guilty later because you're like, I know what to do and I'm not doing it. And so it's like, that's the rub. Like you're learning this new mastermind way of thinking and it makes sense. And then you're not necessarily finding yourself really utilizing these new tools. And so I really have dug into why that is. And what I've learned is that behavior change is hard. I mean, it's really, honestly, that's the bottom line. It's hard. It's the reason why, right? Like we're about to start a brand new year, a brand new decade, like exciting. There's lots of possibilities. There's lots of things. I know I've been getting a lot of emails about, New Year's resolutions and planning your year. And I'm doing a year planning workshop for my mastermind as well, but I do it a little differently because what mostly happens is you have all of these big goals, and then usually by about 3 weeks in, they've fallen by the wayside. Even if you started and you had some good momentum, most people, like a ridiculously high percentage of people, abandon their New Year's resolutions by around, I don't know, the 3rd week of January. And there's brain science behind this. There's a lot of brain science behind why it is so hard to create behavior change. And so I've experimented with a lot of different tools in the mastermind, and really what the brain science is telling us in terms of how you create a new habit, like why you fall back into old habits. Okay, I understand it. Like the brain seeks the familiar. There's a primal reason that we do that. We seek the familiar. We do those familiar patterns, honestly, because those are the deepest neural pathways in our brain. And the way we're designed as humans is to hold on to as many of our calories as we can in case we come into a moment where we go into a fight or flight. Like we're going to need those calories to like fight the tiger in the jungle, which in modern life might just mean, the email that comes that gets you all ruffled, whatever it is in our modern life. But our primal, that primal part of our brain, the oldest part of our brain, a lot of people refer to it as the lizard brain. It is naturally always trying to be stingy with its calories. Like, oh, I'm not going to expend calories to not eating that thing because you promised that you wanted to eat, not eat that thing. Like I want to eat that thing now, and to not eat that thing, or to not yell at my kid, or to do whatever the behavior change is, to not hit snooze on my alarm. Like those old patterns are what come naturally to us. So to not do those things will take actually more calories, more energy from our body to resist doing those old things. Does that make sense, you guys? So when you're creating a new habit, you have a New Year's resolution. It might be that you want to be more productive in your day. You want to get up earlier. You want to start exercising. I mean, a lot of times people, it's about health and fitness. You want to start exercising. You want to eat healthier. And in order to do that, you have to create behavior change. And to create behavior change, it means instead of hitting the snooze button, you pop up and you get up early and you go exercise. It means you take the time on Sunday to do some meal planning and you do some food prep, and you have to expend those calories creating those new habits and doing all kind of the behind the scenes work to make them a reality. And that takes effort. It takes energy. And so you start off all gung-ho, but when push comes to shove and it's Sunday afternoon and it's meal prep and all that, you're like, screw this. I'm going to go lay in my bed and watch some Netflix. I'm going to stay in the cave where it's nice and cozy. That's that lizard part of your brain that comes up with all the excuses. It's fine. You'll eat healthy. You don't need to do all the meal planning. You're not that kind of person. Like, there's all this stuff that comes online and it's because our brain is always trying to kind of sabotage us to keep us in the same habits that we've always been in, because the brain seeks the familiar. It's the way we hold on to as much of our energy and calories as possible, so that when we have that tiger in the jungle moment, we'll be able to fight hard or run fast. We'll have our reserves all built up because we didn't expend it doing, whatever that thing was, what that is not a neural pathway or a habit that's been formed in our brain that comes naturally. So the creating behavior change, it's interesting, yes, there's brain science behind it. And yes, it's really important for us to have like systems in place and to be organized, which is not a strength for me. And to do things like listen to this podcast, to expose your mind to new learning and new information and new tools, hopefully presented in a somewhat engaging way, because if it's presented in a way that puts you to freaking sleep, that doesn't do anybody any good, right? So all that is important, but hands down, the most important tactic I have discovered over the last year, as I've been using my mastermind as my little guinea pigs, is that behavior change comes from consistent practice and implementation. And that's what it takes to create a new habit. And this is the interesting thing. I can talk about taking action all day. I can talk about the importance of practice and implementation. I can teach you tools, right? So for one of the tools that we've been using in the mastermind, for anybody who's hasn't heard of the 5-4-3-2-1, the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins, I encourage you to learn about that. Watch her TED Talk or pick up her book. It's an interesting tool, and there's a lot of brain science behind it. And we've been using it in the mastermind in terms of using that and taking a deep breath as a way to just sort of like disrupt an old pattern and throw our brain for a loop. So that's been a super helpful tool for us in the mastermind. And the biggest thing, the systems, the organization, the tools like the 5-second, all of that stuff is super important. For most people, like I would say 95% of the people who have been getting the biggest results in my mastermind, it's been the community piece. The community piece and we've been playing around with a lot of different interesting ways for us to have all these ongoing conversations and done in sort of this intimate way. Where when we have these groups of like 5 people who really get to know each other, and then we have bigger, larger conversations within the mastermind, but it's the community piece. And y'all don't have to join my mastermind to get this. You actually could do this by just like, how like book clubs pop up. If you created a book club, let's say of 5 people, and you read things like my book or Mel Robbins' book, different books that really talk about creating behavior change. And let's say you called it the behavior, the new habit book club. I'm just coming up with that right now. The new habit book club. And it had 5 people. What we've noticed in the mastermind is that these little groups, these intimate groups, having real conversation, like sharing vulnerability, sharing the truth, encouraging each other, propelling each other, giving honest feedback, like just these ongoing conversations is the thing that seems to be moving the needle toward creating these amazing lives. And that's what we've noticed in the mastermind as we've been playing around with things over the last year. So it's interesting because what you notice is so for us in the mastermind, the whole idea is we don't want to live lives that are just fine. I'm like, I always say like F fine. We don't like fine, really? Like fine is like vanilla. Like my grandmother used to give one time, my grandmother, my nan, she took us to Baskin Robbins when I was a kid. I had this friend named Ashley, and we go to Baskin Robbins and we're so excited. I still love Baskin Robbins to this day. And Ashley ordered vanilla, and my nan had a conniption fit that with all of these flavors to order vanilla, it was like a travesty to her. She was like, there is no way. And to me, like when you're like, I'm fine, things are fine, it's fine. It's like ordering vanilla ice cream at Baskin Robbins. I actually think vanilla ice cream is sort of delicious, but I got where she was going. There's so much more out there that's so much more interesting. Like, how about living a life that's fan freaking tastic? How about that? Like who aspires to live a life of fine? So I say we're starting a new decade. 2020 is a new decade. Don't you want to live a life where you feel like you're thriving? Enough feeling like you're just surviving. Enough of that. And when you start to achieve, results and really learn how you can create a new habit that creates more positive results in your life, right? So let's say you do it, you stick to that healthy eating or exercise regimen, and you start to shed those pounds, those extra 10 pounds or however many pounds that you've been carrying, that you know that your outside doesn't define you. And like the way I think about it is it's like annoying to expend any of your bandwidth towards that BS all day. Like when those extra pounds are there, like how much of your day are you sitting there thinking, oh, my pants are digging into my stomach? That used to be mine. Like I'd be driving and I would just expend bandwidth, like thinking about like my jeans digging into my stomach or my stomach hanging out over my jeans. I want to live a life better than that. I don't want to waste energy thinking about that. I'd rather think about more important things than my fat roll hanging over my jeans, like really. And so what you start to notice is that if you've created some behavior change and it feels good, like that positive momentum, it propels more, more of the same to come. So you start to notice that it happens in your body. You start to feel better in your body. It starts to change how you feel in general. You start to have more patience with your kids. Your family starts to get along better. Before you know it, there's something that happens, career wise, and the opportunity comes your way. You're showing up differently. Like it's this like domino effect. It's contagious, but not like a contagious disease in a bad way. It's contagious in a good way. So as you start to learn what it takes for you to create behavior change, and I'm telling you guys, community is a pivotal piece. You cannot do this by yourself, most likely. It's not sustainable. So when you have that small, intimate group where you're working together. That's why I think a lot of times like running groups and exercise groups or CrossFit groups become so connected and so bonded, because it's more than just like showing up to work out or showing up to run together. There's, it taps into that primal need of belonging that we all have as humans, and it just feels better. It feels better not to go at it alone. So that's what I want to say to you guys, that 2020, I want it to be your year to thrive too. Whether you're in the mastermind or not, you're here, you're in the mastermind parenting tribe, you're listening, this is making sense to you. And I'm here to say, like you deserve to have a life where you feel like you're thriving. It is entirely possible. It is entirely possible. And it makes me crazy. Like when I meet miserable people, just people that just like want to just complain all the time. And I'm not saying like also the sugary sweet, like, oh, everything's perfect. Like that's so freaking annoying too. But like people that just like bond over just bond over BS all the time. They're complaining all the time. It's like living in that victim story, and they don't know how to create a new habit. Like their habit loop is the habit of misery, the habit of I don't have to take action because life happened to me. And I'm like, no, you can, everything's figure outable. Like you absolutely can do something different, and you got to take action. You got to find resources. You got to build in support. It takes some planning. Like all good things come with some hard work, and the hard work involved is finding the way that the support system that you need to thrive. So I want y'all to step into action. If you need my help, we are enrolling. We have a February new group starting. We keep the groups small, so the spots are limited. It's important to me to know each and every member of my mastermind, so we do keep the groups small. Last year, I didn't enroll a lot of new groups because I was really set on figuring this out and helping my current members to get the results that they wanted, and really figuring out what it takes for people to get behavior change and to make behavior change. I feel like we've sort of figured it out. So if you feel like it's your time, it's honestly like we've made it super affordable. And if you are feeling called to join, I want you to go to mastermindparenting.com/February, and you can read more about it, and you'll have the application there to apply. We have a team member if you want to, there's a link on that page if you want to talk to someone on our team to find out more. But more than anything, I want you to step into this new decade knowing that you deserve the exact life that you want. I doubt it's a life of fine. Like we're doing more than that. We're going to thrive in 2020. We're going to thrive in 2020 and beyond. And I hope you guys have a fabulous New Year's. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Have you read my book, The Parent Gap? Have you listened to my book, The Parent Gap? I doubt you've listened because my publisher hasn't released it yet on Audible. However, I have the audio version of The Parent Gap that I would love to send to you. You can download it at mastermindparenting.com/book. That's mastermindparenting.com/book for your free audio version of The Parent Gap. You're welcome. Bye.